Good morning, everyone, and a very happy Sunday to you. We have jumped ahead in time by an hour, and that's exciting. We're moving forward. And who else could I bring on a date like this when we're going to jump ahead, move forward, take a leap in time, and who else could it be but Amber Howard? She is such a lovely human being. I met her when I was doing Landmark. I know she has all these, credentials to her name, the CBPBA, all of that. I don't know what all of that stands for, but how I see her and who she is to me is that she is this phenomenal, incredible, unstoppable human being. She's full of compassion. She is always there for you if you were to reach out, and she will never let you be in that space. She's a stand for everyone's breakthrough in whatever space and time they're like dealing with struggles. Even for a moment, she will not let her cloak of being, uh, you know, uh, a positive disruptor, like she won't take that cloak off. Uh, that's my experience of Amber. Whenever I've spoken to her, if she sees, um, you know, kind of a breakdown or something that's not working for me, that's not in alignment with who I can be or who I am, she will point it out. She will make a contribution to that, even in her conversations. So that's Amber to me. Amber has come home. She's met all my kids. She did the home introduction. She led the home introduction landmark program event at my place. My daughter knows her, and I also see the other side of her. She is a beautiful mother who's very attached in a not a very okay, I won't say the word attached, but she's very committed in love to her kids. She has three beautiful children. I've met two. I am yet to meet the little one, your youngest one. And
That's so
I met, I met the other two, and what I really was blown away by is when the two kids, the older kids, when they decided to move out and travel and go to other parts of the world, how you how you were in allowance of their growth.
Mm.
It's a very hard thing to let your kids go, to see them leave home and go to faraway countries. And as a mom, I would feel very anxious of how are they going to be, who's going to look after them, what if they're ill, they have nobody there, what if something bad happens, like all these crazy thoughts come in. But you were so graceful and generous as a mother to allow them to experience their greatness and to be able to deal with whatever life throws at them. You allowed them that space to express themselves and trusted them that they can do it. So that really moved me as a mother, and it did inspire me uh, remember that when it's my turn and they have to go. For all you know, I might reach out to you, Amber. This is what's happening.
I'm
So
always here to have your back.
thank you. And I also remember that it wasn't easy for you. You were vulnerable. You were feeling what you had to feel, but you didn't let that get in the way of their growth and of how they wanted to explore life and the world. So I really have a lot of admiration for you. And I've seen you grow. I mean, I know that you were powerful from whatever you shared in Landmark about your life story. But in the last few years, I've seen you grow exponentially, and you've been so committed to that. You've done a lot of work and you keep doing the work. So I just acknowledge you and I love you. And I'm so grateful that you hopped on at very short notice. You hopped on and you said yes to be your own North Star and to share your story with the people that are in my community.
Mm.
So although I know who you are and I know what you've been up to, I would still love for you to tell us what are all those credentials that you have beside your name? Who are you? What do you do?
This is some big questions, Sharon. First, let me just say thank you for that lovely and so generous introduction. And, just thank you for really being someone who sees me and what I'm committed to and, what I value matters to me. And, thank you for your friendship. I value it. You're precious to me. And thank you for the opportunity this morning to share about myself and make a difference for whoever this conversation is going to make a difference for this morning. So just thank you for all of that. And again, I say, it's so funny. I had a conversation. I've been doing some work with a fellow community member from Lamberg about my brand. And I said to him, we actually just had this conversation last Wednesday, because I'm getting interviewed more and people ask me that question, like, tell us your story. And there's just so much to tell, and I know you yourself have been through quite a lot in life, Sharon. So when people say to me, tell me about yourself, or who are you? It's like, and I said to him, like, I don't know how to encapsulate my story in a soundbite. And right. I don't know if any of us can be reduced down to a soundbite, but like, how do you start to allow people to access, in a relatable way, who you are and what we discovered in the conversation? Because for me, it's always like an inquiry, right? It's like, it's never whoever I work with, we're in an inquiry together, right? And what I discovered in that meeting with him is my story is a love story.
Beautiful. I already get goosebumps even before you say what you have to say.
Yeah, and it starts off as this is the first time that I'm really creating it this way with anyone. So, it starts off as a story, for my first 10 years of my life as a little girl in New Zealand. It starts off as a mother's love story, my mother's love story. A dedicated, hardworking single mom who we moved so many times because my mom just went wherever the work with. And for all intents and purposes, my childhood in New Zealand was idyllic. My mom has been through, and before I get into any of what I'm about to say next, I just want to be really clear. Anything I ever share about my life is from my own experience, and I don't claim it as truth for anyone else, but this is the experiences of my life as I've experienced them. And I just want to be really clear about that, because some of the things I've been through have been challenging and other people's experience of them may have been different. And I don't want to claim anyone else's experience. So my mom had a very difficult childhood in Canada. She left when she was 18 to travel the world and ended up in New Zealand. And for the first 10 years of my life, she'd really repressed a lot of her childhood trauma. And so, my brother and I, we lived on farms and we played with farm animals and we went to Christian schools. And, there was definitely stuff, but for all intents and purposes, it was pretty idyllic. But the love story is all of the things that my mom did to take care of my brother and I and make sure that we were raised. We got the first 10 years of our life, or 13 of his and 10 of mine, were in a very safe, loving space. And, she always took such care of us, no matter how many times we moved. It was a home again in a couple of days. Like she always created home. And I think that's probably why home, like creating homes for people, having people have a home is so important to me. And then we came to Canada when I was 10, and it was like jarring, and it was, a military coup in Fiji with like armed guards, and you couldn't leave the airport. And it was like coming to this whole new country and moving into my grandmother's home. And to be honest, I really blocked out a lot of the memories from that period of my life. It was very traumatic for all of us. Within a few months of coming to Canada, my brother returned home to New Zealand. And what do I want to say? And it started, I guess, what would be a 32-year journey into learning to love myself, learning to, I think because of the example my mom set, I've always had so much love for other people. like always, like, it's just like, it's always so natural. It's always been so natural for me to love other people in a very deep, connected way. But for much of my life, I hated myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so the last 32 years has really been a journey of falling in love with myself. It's also been a journey of loving my children. I became a mom at the age of 16. I was married with 2 kids by the time I was 18 years old, dropped out of high school. And it's funny you talk about having a North Star, Sharon. One of the things I identified regarding my journey is that I've been very driven from around probably from the time I was 16. I remember when I got pregnant with Matthew and I talked to my guidance counselor and I was like contemplating dropping out of high school. And she didn't want me to. She's like, Amber, like, you're so smart. You know, the odds of you coming back to school if you do this, like, it's, you know, just stick it out. And I just intuitively, it wasn't the space that I needed to be in. And so I chose to drop out and go hang out with other women in my church community who had young children, and because this is the life I was choosing now. And but she, you know, I promised her that day, I remember, I'll never forget, I promised her that day that I would go back to school, I would finish my education. And I did in my 20s. I went to the University of Toronto and I got my degree in philosophy, like bioethics and political science. But for the longest time, my North Star was, I don't know what you would call the opposite of the North Star. It was like I was driven, but it was coming from a very negative place. It was coming from shame, and I had like let down my church community, and I had let down. I was never shame around my kids. Like they're the greatest thing I've ever created. They're just incredible. But I had a lot of shame around bringing them into the world the way I did. You know, the marriage I got into was not ideal for either of us. It was not, you know, broken people attract broken people. And we both did a very good job of attracting each other. And it was really, it was not a great relationship for anyone. And I left him when I was 20 with the kids. But for a long time, like, what drove me was fixing my mistakes. And that I accomplished a lot of results inside of being driven that way, like wanting to create a better life for my kids, wanting to make up for the things that I had done. But it wasn't a very empowered North Star.
I get it. And you know, you're really making me present to something. I have a lot of questions from people who ask me, you know, when you talk about your inner voice, it's the same thing, you know. When you talk about your inner voice, there's something called a chatter, and then there's the voice of wisdom. So that there's like, how do you distinguish if it's a chatter and whether it's your gut feeling, your inner guidance? It's the same thing with, you know, finding your North Star and seeing it, or being driven in the opposite direction. I wonder what that would be like. That's a very interesting discovery I've made in what you've shared. Now I'm going to go on a search on this, you know, how would I define that? Like, you know, that you were driven by everything that was not the North Star, but yet you did have a direction.
100%. Like that promise I made to my teacher. And, you know, from the time, and you know, I couldn't articulate it. And up until recently, I would say it was like woo woo, and I didn't even really share it with many people. But from the time I was a very little girl, I have known that I was put on this earth to make a really big difference. And I didn't know what that was for a long time.
Right.
But it was like this deep knowing. And when you talk about the difference between like the monkey mind or that chatter that comes from the subconscious mind and like our intuition. And I love this quote that says, like, prayer is us talking to God, intuition is God talking to us. The intuition always comes first, but then the chatter comes next, right? So like an example I like to give with people is like, you'll get an intuitive feeling to call someone. And it'll just like out of the blue, you're just like, oh, I should really call my Aunt Beth, or I should say, you know, like, oh, I really want to connect with Sharon. And then all of a sudden what comes right after it is, oh, she's probably working, she's busy, I'll call her later, right? Like that that whatever comes next
Afterthought. Yes.
That, you know, that intuitive feeling. So the more, and this is still something I'm working on. And it's funny, I was talking to someone this morning and they said that I was very intuitive. And I still feel like for myself, there's lots of room to grow here for me in learning to trust my gut. Because I think for a long time in my life, I didn't. I deferred to other people, or because my, you know, it was literally only December of this year that I fully discovered for myself who I am as a global leader, like who I am as a focal point of transformation for humanity. Other people listened to me that way, and I chose to be an intelligent follower. And like at Landmark, we would call it like living in someone else's listening, which I think is a really interesting point, because culturally we have this agreement that we know ourselves best, but we're always filtering our view of ourselves through all of the crap in our head, right? So oftentimes, you know, you tell me that you said earlier that I can always cause a breakthrough for you when people reach out to me, because I only listen to you as the biggest version of yourself.
Right.
Because for me, you are infinitely like you have infinite potential, and you are a freaking miracle. Like, and so there's nothing that you can't do. And so I'm going to interact with that versus like whatever circumstance you're bumping up against in a moment, right? So, yeah, I think the more we can learn to trust that initial gut feeling we have and that initial thought, and be led by that versus the, you know, the other things.
Right. Very true. Well, we have Jackie Haig here saying morning. And she
morning, Jackie. You know, the other thing I'll say about that, Sharon, is trust your feelings as well. I've been doing a lot of work. I did Bob Proctor's Thinking into Results program last year and into the beginning of this year, and now I'm coaching it.
Beautiful.
People on that journey, which has just been so miraculous for me. And like our feelings are a really good indicator of whether we're listening to the higher voice or the not so higher voice. Because you just take because there's an automated like connection between our conscious mind, our subconscious mind, and our body. So if you don't feel good, just take the case that you're engaging with not great thoughts.
Right. So with that, I come to this. So let's say I go with my first thought.
Yeah.
Okay? And then there would be people who would call that being impulsive.
Yes.
Right. And sometimes it'll work and sometimes it won't.
Yeah, well, I think it comes down to your belief, right? Like I choose to believe that everything in life is unfolding for my greatest good. And I really kind of got in touch with my spiritual journey again. You know, I started with a journey into faith in 2019, and then 2020 and now even more in 2020 was a journey into wonder. But
beautiful.
There's a book I just finished reading called The Hiding Place by Corrie ten Boom. She was a leader in the Dutch resistance during World War II. And she said, she was sharing a story about one night she just woke up in the middle of the night and she could hear her sister Betsy downstairs. And she went back to have a cup of tea with her sister. And she went to go back to bed, and she put her hand on the bed and she touched and she cut her finger, because as a result of the bombing, while she went downstairs, a big metal shard had fallen into her pillow. And she started getting upset about that, and what happened if I hadn't gotten up and come to have tea with you? And Betsy, her sister, just really calmly responded, God doesn't ask what ifs. Yes. Right? So it's like, you know, so I'll say, like, I'd say that about it. Like, whatever happens on your journey, I believe it's unfolding for your greatest good, even if in the moment it doesn't feel that way or look that way. And I really, there's a deep knowing around that for me. And then the other thing I would say about it is, especially for those of us, for anyone really, I'm not going to distinguish between people who are like out to be influencers or, you know, but just for anyone. Napoleon Hill in Think and Grow Rich, he puts it at the top of the 6 ghosts of fear, like as the most like the most important fear to get over is that is fear of judgment and criticism. Look, we all have opinions. I was actually just like thinking about it. Like I wrote in my journal yesterday because I was like, I don't remember what we were doing, but I just got present to how opinionated I am as I walk through life and I view other people and you could call them convictions, you could call them opinions, whatever you want to call it. And I was like, wow. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but we all have opinions. And so what? At the end of the day, it's your life. And if you're living your life, like I love Socrates would say, like, you got to look yourself in the mirror at the end of the day. And if you're living your life, your best life, aligned with your values, and you're not harming anyone else in the process of doing that, then, people are always going to have an opinion about what you're doing. So what?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you for sharing that. I would so tell us about a pivotal moment in your life. So, how did things flip from from being driven by something that was not the North Star to finding your North Star and being led by that? Like, when did you start having clarity about this is not it, this is what I really want, this is my journey, and how did life start looking like for you after that?
Yeah, I think a pivotal moment was when an old coworker of mine reached out to me. We used to work together at the airport, and every year on the anniversary of my forum, I reach out to Jeanette and thank her. But she reached out and we'd been having these conversations, and she kept like saying to me, I really see you as a transformational leader, Amber. And I had no idea what she was talking about. I was like, okay. And I definitely did not listen to myself that way. I was still very much in the period of my life of, like, for me, my internal view of myself was something very few people knew. I was like the epitome of fake it till you make it, to the point where when I started sharing authentically about my shame and about the things that I had been through and my lack of confidence and how I felt about myself, people didn't believe it because I was very convincing in my faking it till you make it. Because to me, that was my biggest weakness. And I'm strong and no one's going to see my weakness. Like, why would I share my kryptonite with the world, kind of thing, right? And so she had called me and she said, I want you to come to this introduction to this course that I've been taking classes at Landmark for 11 years. I know you're committed to your development. And up to that point in time, it had been professional development. So all of those little acronyms at the end of my name, getting certified as a business analyst, project manager, change manager, I had invested a lot of time and energy in my professional development because that, wanting to better myself and my career for my kids and my family. But I hadn't done any personal development. And I'm beginning to think I don't even know that we need to make that distinction anymore, but we do. So I had read a lot. I studied the philosophers from which a lot of the personal development that people participate in today, their work is based on, like the foundations of it, academic point of view. But for me, personal development is really about the application of those theories to the living of one's life. And I hadn't done a lot of that. And so I remember, and I'll never forget, and I trusted Jeanette. She's incredible. And I really, admired her. And so she said, I want you, and I lived at Brampton at the time. And she goes, I'm like, okay, sure. How much, the same things that people ask, right? How much the cost and when is it? Right? She's like, it's free and it's on a Wednesday night and it's downtown Toronto. And I was like, you want me to go downtown Toronto on a Wednesday night? Are you crazy? I don't know if I like you that much. Right? And then I was like, okay, you know what? Just get over it. I had a real thing. I used to live downtown, and I discovered in the forum why I had a real thing about going downtown at the time, but I didn't know it at the time. I just really had it like going downtown Toronto was a big pain, and I never wanted to do it, and I did it as little as possible. So I agreed to go, and Wednesday morning comes, and it's in my calendar, and I'm at work at the airport at the time, and she no longer, I don't think she worked there anymore, but I was still there. And I'm like, oh, do I go? can I come up with a reason not to go? But I was like, no, let's do that. I'm going to go. And it was close to my birthday, actually. And so I drove downtown and I walked into the center and I had no idea what I was going to. The only thing she told me was like, bring something that you'd like to have a breakthrough in. Right. And so for me, I really had it. Like I had done a lot of work on my self-worth and self-esteem. I'd done therapy, I'd read books. Like I had it like I had really overcome something in this area of my life. There were two things that I had could not shift. One was taking pictures. Like there are almost no pictures of me with my kids. I was always behind the camera.
Wow.
And the other one was dancing. I always wanted to dance, but I just like, no matter what, I couldn't bring myself to dance, even alone. Like I just didn't dance and I wanted to. And I'm the kind of person that if I can't do something, it really irritates me. No matter what, like I just couldn't shift those things to the point where we went to New Zealand in 2015 to see my dad for the first time. Matthew helped pay for that trip. We went as a family for 5.5 weeks. And I promised myself I would take pictures with the kids on that trip. There's not one picture of my dad and I and my kids together.
Oh, wow.
I just couldn't do it. And so, flash forward, this is now like August of 2016, just over a year later.
I'll stop you right here and I'll tell you, I have to share this with you. You really make a contribution here, for me, because my daughter, Sarah, she hates to take pictures. And so we always end up it used to be something that bothered me, and more so because I used to be sucked into other people's understanding of it. And there were many times that there were many like friends from back home or family members from back home who would say, why is your older daughter not there in every picture? And what they would make it mean is that because she's from another marriage and my other kids are from another marriage, so I have this partiality and I am only, I'm only there for these 3 kids and not for Sarah, or there's something not working, or there's something wrong, or Sarah's upset at me, so she doesn't want to be seen with me. And the stories were like insane, full of judgment, and that would bother me so much that I would end up arguing with Sarah and putting my foot down and say, I want you in the pictures. People think bad things, and I don't want to be seen as a bad mother, that I love you any less than anybody else, or I don't take you with me. I mean, there have been vacations that I've been to and she's not been there on the pictures, but I get it, like she just doesn't like to be in pictures, and that has to do with her. It has nothing to do with me.
I know. How many times do we do that as Sharon, like as parents or just people, but really as parents, we because we don't want to look bad or we're afraid of what people are going to think about us, we go against our own intuition, we go against our own values or what actually really would make a difference for our kids, because we're afraid of what other people are going to think or because of what they do and their judgments and their criticisms. And it's like, well, and I thought about saying this at the beginning when you talked about Kayla and Matthew moving out and how I handled all of that. I think it comes down to a fundamental belief I have that my kids don't belong to me. They're not. I've been gifted the opportunity to be a guide and a mentor in their life. And so at the end of the day, and even when I was young, I started this journey quite young, and I don't know where I came from this. Maybe it was intuition. I have no idea. But I saw it as like a work back plan. It's like, well, who do I want them to be as adults? I want them to make good decisions. I want them, so, well, then who do I need to be with them now? Like, I want them to have discernment about the kind of people that they hang around with. So even when Matthew was 10, 11, 12, if he was around kids that I didn't like, or I didn't think were a great influence on him, I would guide him through those conversations to make that decision for himself. Like, do you like who you are when you're with that person? Because I wanted him to grow up to be the kind of man who was able to have good discernment around who he spends his time with. And I knew intuitively, like I just knew that I wasn't going to be with them every day for the rest of their lives.
Right.
So yeah, I think, but we do that, and I've done that. There have been times where I've fought with my kids over things, or the opposite. Like my family has always been about service, and growing up as children, it was just expected of us. Like we were always the last people to leave a party. Even if the other family had left, we would be there helping to clean up. That was just like part of the agreement reality in my family about what it was to be a good person, a human being. And
Right.
and I realized that I instilled that in my kids without even thinking about it. And they came to me at one point in time and they said, Mom, like we want you to ask. You know, and 9 times out of 10 we'll say we're going to help clean up, but we don't want it to be assumed that we have to or we're going to. We want you to ask us. As they got older and became adults, and I was like, fair enough. Like you're your own people, and just be, you know, they wanted that freedom to be able to say no, which I think is really healthy and not something that I really had for much of my life, right?
Right.
So,
Very true. Very
yeah.
true. So going back to your story of, you know, when you went back to visit your dad and there were no pictures.
Yeah,
Like,
so I get to the center on Wednesday night and I walk in and there's like a bunch of people and I have no idea what's really going to happen. Jeanette was meeting me there. And I walk in and again, remember I said no one knew about my self-image stuff I had going on, right? So I walk in and then there's these women there who have these big signs on their, like buttons on their chest that are like, I lost 60 pounds on Herbalife, or I lost 100 pounds on this. Like, and I was like, what did she invite me to? I'm leaving. I almost turned and walked right out the door. And I didn't. And so that night, I believe you know Udi Pilawate, he's the Landmark Forum leader, and
he's phenomenal.
One of my heroes. Like I can't. There are no words for the differences this human being made in my life. But so he was leading the introductory session that night, and he ended up leading my Landmark Forum. But he drew a circle on the board, and he created this conversation about, you know, the things that we know and the things that we don't know. And if some things, and as he was drawing the circle, like it didn't even need for him to finish it. Like I just knew. And the question I had to ask myself at the time is, if the reason why I didn't like taking pictures or I didn't like dancing or I couldn't was hidden somewhere from my view and my blind spot, then because I always had it like if I worked hard enough, Sharon, I would get there, because that's my deal. I work hard. So I was like, if I work hard enough for long enough, I'll get there. But I had to, I didn't have to, but I had the opportunity to really ask myself that question. If it is in fact hidden in some blind spot I have, if it is hidden from my view, then it doesn't matter how hard I work. I'm never going to be able to transform that. And so I literally registered for the Landmark Forum on the spot. I did the forum in October of that year. And really from that moment, like my life just has not looked the same. That I shared with my VP of HR because she knew I was going to do the forum. I shared what I got out of it on Monday after the weekend. And she's like, wow, you had the $1 million forum. Like, I discovered that weekend that I didn't have a small self-esteem problem. Like, I was still walking around in life like every single human being could have told me they love me, and I would have made liars out of all of them, because I like that was the depth of how much shame and self-hatred and self-loathing I had. And you wouldn't have known it to look at me. And I was a very successful person. Like by all accounts, went from being a teenage mother to working at one of the world's biggest airports and massive groups of friends, and, you know, moved my kids from, you know, like help all of this. But
not just that, I remember you like a couple of years ago in your previous home. And I think it's COVID that is stopping you from doing it right now. But I remember you for every holiday or something, you'd be cooking and you'd be like, come, everybody come. You know, I mean, that's how inviting, welcoming, and, you know, like a people's person you were, like, you know, you socializing and loving people and bringing them in. I remember that. I remember
well, that's really my mom, right? My mom, I think, because she went through such a traumatic childhood, and I often don't share the details of her story. One, because it's her story, and two, you know, what's important about my mom's story is how unpredictable where she is now is. right? Based on everything she went through, not the trauma, not, like not the details of it, but like that this woman loves the way that she does and is mercy and forgiveness and all of those things. Like, that's what's remarkable about my mother. But my mom, because she had such a hard childhood, I think for her, it was always important that people knew they mattered and people always had a home to go to, especially at the holidays. So we would have homeless people at our Christmases. Like she would come home and she would go to the store and she just, oh, look, I found someone on my way home. They don't have it, and my core belief is that love, connection, and belonging are fundamental to well-being and success. And so for me, it's like, but it's not enough that just be something I say. I want to be congruent with that and how I am with people. And it's really important to me that people not be alone at the holidays. And I don't want them to be alone ever, but I think there's a lot of extra pressure that gets put on people for special occasions where they feel like, where if they do experience loneliness or disconnection at other times of the year, it's amplified because we've got a whole bunch of like shoulds about what holidays should look like. You should have family, you should be connected, you shouldn't be alone, and so it's just an opportunity. And it was hard this year, actually. I found it really hard on Christmas that I couldn't do that. And so I opened a Facebook room for like one of the Facebook rooms that you could open for a little bit. And I think one person stopped in for a couple of minutes, but I mean, it definitely wasn't the same, but we do what we can given the circumstances. So, and good morning, Ed. It's good to see you, my friend. Yeah. So we do the best we can. And that's what I could do this year, as opposed to opening my home up to other people. And my kids have just kind of, I don't know if they'll continue that tradition. Who knows? But that's where it keeps up in my life.
So, I mean, looking at you, you were such a loving mom. You're so loving to people that you don't even know. You opened the doors of the home to people just with the intention of making them feel loved and making them feel like they belong and they have a home or a place to go to. You were very committed in your work, in your growth. What made you not love yourself? I mean, the whole world would love you.
No, and they did. It's like, it was such, man, the fraud complex was real big. And it's interesting. I'm still discovering this, and I'll share what I've gotten to about it with you. Because I'm not really 100% sure. But yeah, the world loved me. Like I would get positive feedback and people would say, and still do say the things to me that most people only hear at their funerals. Like, the world loved Amber and I remember like Audrey, who was a coach in our Introduction Leaders program at one point, because I stayed on, because I decided on Sunday night in my forum that I was going to go on to become a landmark forum leader, and I'm driven. So I was going quick. I did that like I did everything in life. Work hard, go fast, and get it done up until COVID hit. But I remember at one point Audrey saying, Amber, your internal dialogue is disgusting. Like it was just disgusting. And I never really understood, to be honest, where the depth of that shame. Like I believe in generational curses. I believe that, the shame of whatever happened to my grandmother and that she did to my mom, like I believe that those things got passed down. But I did have and this is the first time I'm sharing about it publicly. A few months ago, I did a distance healing with a woman who I met in the Thinking into Results program. And she at the end of the healing, she called me back and she said, Amber, do you believe in past lives? And I said, I don't know what I believe. Like I'm kind of new to some parts of my spiritual journey. I said, I believe that we're all made of energy. And so is it possible, like, that this combination of energy that is Amber today was at some point in the past a different combination of energy? Sure, absolutely. I can believe that's possible. And she said, well, I really got strongly, like I really saw strongly in your healing that in a past life, many lives ago, you were a leader of a tribe in the Amazon. And it was an idyllic place to live. People lived according to their highest purpose. Like it was just such a beautiful community. And one night you were having a celebration and a neighboring tribe who was jealous of what you created came in and slaughtered all of your people in front of you. And they took you hostage and tortured you and had their way with you and then killed you as an example of what women shouldn't do. And she said in those days leading up to your execution, you felt so guilty, even though there was nothing that you could have done. And the minute she said that, what was immediately there was me. Oh no, I would have felt like I got them killed because I taught them to live that way. And I don't know what I believe about all of it, but it did kind of complete a little. And look, we make things mean things. Is there anything, like, I don't necessarily believe there's any kind of truth out there. It's like your mind is constantly going to make something mean something. So choose meaning that empowers you. Choose meaning that moves you forward. Or or by default, the meaning is going to be stuff that holds you back and makes you feel crappy. So I say, if in this hand Amber's amazing and in this hand Amber's crap, I'm going to choose to believe Amber's amazing. Neither of these things is true objectively. It's my belief is what, right? So what it completed for me when she said that to me was, I could imagine that, because she said I've carried that shame through many lives, and this is the life where I'm completing that shame in this lifetime. And I'm like, wow, what must have my other lives look like? Because this one was pretty horrific at times. Like, I'm like, wow, those past lives must have been a treat. But it completed for me, like, the level of that. Like, now I get why I kind of related to myself like I was a serial killer.
I hear you.
Yeah, and is that true, Sharon? I don't know, right? I don't know if it's true or not.
It gives you an understanding, and then you can take it up from there to release what you need to release. That's how I see it, because I've been through past life regression therapy, and I've actually taken a course on that. And I've had my own sessions, and I've had discoveries of how that explain kind of a thing in my head and comfort me and make me, like, because there are things, sometimes we will be frustrated in asking ourselves, like, why did this happen to me, or why am I going through this, or what is happening? And sometimes there are answers which you get from your past life sessions, and you feel like, okay, so once you have that awareness, then things shift, and then you're able to look at that issue or that whatever you're struggling with in life, give it a different spin, and you're able to come out of it and have a very like objective view, like how you were a witness, and you were like as if you were watching a movie when you regressed into your past life and you saw all that. So then this life becomes like a movie, and you get it, and you're like, okay, I can do this, make peace with whatever it is that has bothered you. That's how it was for me.
I think you're right. I think it's an access, right? If you choose to have it be, it did kind of bring a level of understanding about, because I really didn't, like, the level of shame that I experienced in my life was so out of contrast with like what I had done in my life. Like, it just didn't, it never made sense to me. And it was very real. And it was almost like the more people admired me, the crappier I felt, because like I really was like, if they just knew me, wow, they would think I was so great, like it was like, that was very real for me. So, and as we go through our journeys, like I think like my journey to my North Star has just kept evolving the more I've leaned into. And this is one of the things a lot of my clients will say to me, or people who want to work with me as a coach, is like, you do the work. And I do, like, and I do the work often, because I'm constantly, and it's from a very different place. When I first started my personal development journey, it was like, there's something wrong with me and I got to fix me. And now it's like, no, like I'm committed to having the tools and the awareness, and because I get like self-love, self-worth is not a destination. And I used to have it like it was a destination. It's an ongoing journey of recreating the image I have of myself, so that it's congruent with what I want to create in the world.
Right.
And I use the analogy of a musician, right? Like when you first decide you want to start singing, you might go to a karaoke, and the kind of self-confidence or self-image that you have to do karaoke, well, that's one thing, right? And then it's like, oh, I want to do an open mic night. Well, that's that's a different self-image. Like you need to create your self-image to be able to get up and do an open mic night. And then you do your first like bar or pub. And then, and then you look at the kind of self-image that you need to be able to do the halftime show at the Super Bowl. If you're Beyonce or Shakira or whatever, that's a whole different self-image, right? So it's not like, it's an ongoing journey of discovery. And I think that's been the really big shift. So I do the work, and as I keep doing the work, my ability to communicate the why I was created gets clearer for me. And then I can communicate that more effectively to other people. And someone reached out to me this morning from Nigeria. They want me to participate in a startup that they're doing, creating a global social e-commerce platform. And that came out of nowhere. It was so funny. I really had a thought yesterday because I heard that the person who created Popcorn, which is a tool to help podcasters get sponsorships, like she just sold it for $22.5 million or something like that. And it would be fun to participate in something like that. And then all of a sudden this guy reaches out to me today. I'm like, okay, got you, universe. But I don't even know where I was going with that.
No, so you were talking about it's an ongoing process, the North Star, or even yourself building it.
We've done a rabbit hole for a second. It's like when he brought the opportunity to me, now it's like, because like opportunities, the more you step into this, the more opportunities to serve and contribute are going to show up once you get that. That's really what like gives life fulfillment, right?
Absolutely.
And so now like I get to use that North Star to decide, like, am I going to choose to participate in this opportunity? Can I connect creating and participating in a global social e-commerce platform to creating a world where I fulfill on love, connection, and belonging, being present for all human beings? Like what, and if I can find that connection, great, then I'm all in, because I know that, it's aligned with my North Star. If I can't, it's not the opportunity for me, and there's someone else who would be better suited to participate. They should still go do what they're going to do, but I'm probably not the right person to do it.
So you have absolute clarity. And that's what I talk about, being my North Star. So you have to see your North Star before you can become one. When you align with it, that's when you become your North Star. And now that North Star is not outside of you. You discover that it's inside you, it's within you, when you have that clarity and this is for me and this is not for me. And that's what my journey has been as well in my life. And it's ongoing and it's continuous. And it's interesting that you told us the story of your past life session where you were a leader of a tribe in the Amazons. And you remind me of Paulo Coelho's book, The Valkyries. And they are these women, and they ride motorcycles. They come and I think you ride a motorcycle, don't you? I mean, I was just thinking of that. I don't know what's the connection, but these are very powerful women, and they are a tribe, and and they move in tribes and they ride motorcycles. So I was just thinking of that when you were sharing that with me. It's amazing how we make those connections,
Yeah, there's something very powerful the women bring. The guy reached out to me this morning. I mean, I think part of it is he saw my LinkedIn profile. I got connected with this booster group, which is great to help kind of like grow your, exposure to your content. And we met through that. And I think he genuinely liked my LinkedIn profile and how I've positioned myself, my brand, whatever. But part of why he's like, we need a woman on the project.
Beautiful.
Right. And, you could hear that, like, and he even mentioned, like, it's like people are starting to get backlash. It was International Women's Week, and we need we don't want to go out to the public with this without having a woman on the core team. And, you can hear that however you want it, but women really contribute something. We are creators. The subconscious mind is the feminine, right? It births, we create. And so I think there's something very powerful when you choose to bring feminine energy and woman into projects. And, I think we really do offer a different kind of leadership and a kind of leadership that the world needs.
Right. Right. And to go back to your story of not wanting to take pictures because of what your inner narrative was, you sent me a beautiful headshot of you.
I know. That was my first professional photo shoot I've ever done. And man, it took, I mean, it's still, right? You're always on the mountain.
So
Every time.
how did that happen? How did you get there? How did you get there? Tell us that.
Well, so after I did the forum and I started taking more and more pictures of myself, I got to the point where I could start to love pictures I took of myself. Anyone else had that experience when you take a selfie and you're like, oh, I love it. And then someone else takes a picture of you and you're like, hold on, is that the same human being? How powerful our mind is. Our subconscious mind will literally show us the image that it expects to see.
Right.
This is why the work I do with people in mindset and the work I did with, and thinking into results and rewriting that self-image is so important. Because if your self-image of you in your subconscious mind is that you look a certain way, you're fat or you're too skinny or whatever, your eyes will deceive you. You will look in the mirror. If you believe you weigh a certain amount, you get on. You will weigh whatever your subconscious mind believes that you weigh. And it's crazy, and people might think I'm nuts, but it's like I've witnessed it where I've gotten on the scale and it told me I'd lost a significant amount of weight and I didn't believe that result. And the next day I got on the scale and I was back to what I thought I was.
Absolutely. I hear you.
That's how powerful our subconscious minds are. So it started with taking pictures of myself. And learning.
So what was it like? What made you take the first picture? And when you took it, go back to that moment. What was it like for you to cause that disruption?
I think it's it's like peeling back the, when I said earlier, leaning into the discomfort, that doesn't go away. Every stage of it is that you come up against the fear, you come up against whatever feelings you have, and then it's a choice to be brave in the face of that, right? And I remember the day of that photo shoot, I didn't even want to do the photo shoot for the longest time because I still had this experience that when people took pictures of me, and Audrey was instrumental in having that photo shoot happen and finding the photographer, someone she trusted, and Carmela was amazing. And I remember having a conversation with Audrey a couple of weeks before the photo shoot saying that I have to clear this out of my space. I'm just sharing this with you. I really have it. When people take pictures of me, I don't look the same. And I don't like what I look like when people take pictures of me. It's not it's funny because even when I look in the mirror, I'm like, oh, she's sexy. She's beautiful. I like the way I look in the mirror. And then I would see a picture of someone else. I'm like, that is not what I see when I look in the mirror anymore, right? So it's how powerful the mind is, right? You will never outperform your belief. You'll never outperform your beliefs. So you want to get really, for anyone listening to us, you want to get really clear about what your beliefs are. And then ask yourself, serve you? Do I want to keep believing this? And so Audrey took that fear and took that concern. And she said, Amber, she's like, you're beautiful. You're going to look stunning. It's going to be amazing. Just trust me. And so I trusted her. And the day of the photo shoot, it came up a couple times during the photo shoot. I think at one point in time, I even had a little bit of a cry because the feelings were coming up. And then I remember I met Audrey. This is before COVID. I met Audrey and she showed me that picture, the one that you have that's on my banner of and I literally took my own breath away when I saw it. I was like, right. It's
a beautiful picture of you, by the way.
Yeah. There's a confidence there. And, but I think, for anyone, the more you step out into the life, it doesn't mean the fear goes away. But I think having your North Star, having that clarity about, and this is what I want for everyone. It makes me sad to think that people die not knowing why they were created. Because every one of us is created for a unique purpose. And it doesn't have to be some global transformational purpose. It could just be having the best, most extraordinary family or transforming the community that you live in or transforming, having a great workplace or a great company, whatever that is. but every one of us was created for a unique purpose. And my commitment is people get to discover what that is, because when you discover what your purpose is and then you're living inside of it, you don't work anymore.
Absolutely. I agree.
Yeah.
Completely. Yes. Well, thank you for sharing your story and being so vulnerable and generous with it. I adore you and I appreciate you. And I am very sure that the people who are watching or who will watch this conversation will have a lot of gold in there for them to dig into and discover what treasures are hidden in there for them. I would love to connect with you again later for my own work and whatever I intend to do with my own North Star program. Looking forward to that.
Everyone needs that program. Like that's the right, Sharon? Like I can't do all this on my own, but your program being out there in the world and everyone having access to that, like, means that I don't have to do that work. Like I can manifest that gets created through you, but that doesn't have to, and then like that's a piece that's getting taken care of. And, just like Christine and other people I know are doing work around forgiveness and other things, right? So absolutely, I'm here for whatever you need. And I think you're going to be on my podcast soon. So I can't wait to have that covered. Have you on my show?
Absolutely. Look, and what's the name of your podcast, if you want to tell the viewers?
It's called What Would Amber Do? So,
yes.
Yeah.
Very true. What would Amber do? And she's always doing, and that's the way to be. Like you take massive actions and you don't tell people what to do. You do.
Yeah.
You do it and lead the way. So that's beautiful. Thank you so much, Amber. Have a very wonderful rest of your weekend. And I wish all viewers, everybody else watching this, share your Shine. I get tongue twisted. Share your Shine series. Enjoy the rest of your day. And we'll be back again next weekend, next Sunday, with another powerful story. Until then, cheers, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thank you so much, Sharon.
Bye.